Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships. Today we're going to be doing an upgrade commander build video on the Tier 6 American Battleship, New Mexico, which has been in the game for quite some time. So only befitting that at some point I future this ship, and you can catch the really fun battle we had yesterday. I'll have at the end of this video. And now to go over the upgrading commander. So what type of battleship is New Mexico? New Mexico is, I would say, because of her dispersion, she probably plays best in the mid-range, and I say that as in like the 12 to 15 kilometer window, which I guess at tier 6, maybe you could say that's kind of becoming more long range. So I don't know, let's say 10 to 15, because of these guns. She's not a good brawler. She's not really good at long-range sniping either. I mean, the build we have right now in terms of the gun range is 18.7 with the build, but you also have access to spotter plane, and just playing the battleship beyond the 15, 16 kilometers just feels a little weird, but it's possible, especially if the enemy team is running away from you, or you have to move to another flank, or you get some early shots off at the start of a battle. So let's go ahead and look at the armor scheme. As I kind of made note, the armor scheme of the New Mexico is one that at bottom tier, if you're versus tier 8s, a lot of the tier 8 battleships are kind of drilling over you because you're covered in this 26mm plating everywhere. And I mean everywhere besides just your guns and your plating on your superstructure armor. So 26mm just everywhere, essentially. When we begin to take off the side plating and whatnot, you can see here's the casemate armor. So it actually has a little bit of this quote-unquote turtleback armor scheme, if you will. And then you have the Citadel armor. So you have 203mm down here, 343 up here. And on the upper deck, it's still this 26mm, and then 16mm here on the front. And then that 343. And then the 343 down here, and then the 115 on the side for the torpedo bulkhead. So she eats a lot of damage just because of being covered in 26mm. I mean, she's pretty, I'd say, good overall with her armor scheme, you know, when you're going up against tier 6s, tier 5s. But you just have to be mindful that if you can eat a lot of penetration as well. You saw the Dallas with AP was getting full pins on us. Also because he was kind of going a little aggro and getting too close to us. Other thing I should make mention of is the armor plating for the guns. 457 on the front, 254, which drops down to a 229, and in the back also 229, top 127. So the most vulnerable part on these turrets is the top of the turret, but front on, I mean, this is some really thick armor for some battleship guns, so that's really good. Just know you have to be conscious of your side, especially this back part when it drops from the 254 to 229. That is possible to get the guns knocked out. Though in my memory of playing New Mexico, I don't remember having too much of that issue. But it's just something you have to be mindful of. Now in terms of her modules, there's no upgrades for the gun. What you see is what you get, 356mm gun. This is kind of interesting if I go to artillery. It's weird how here you see the Mark 7 in a turret and then Mark 11 in a turret, and I don't actually know if the guns are actually slightly different. I mean, they look identical across the board. Huh, I never noticed that before here with the New Mexico, but I don't see anything labeled here differently in terms of the gun performance. Okay, I'm just checking this for myself too, just to make sure that if something comes up, I can discuss that. But with the build we have a 34.2 second reload time, and I was getting mixed up yesterday. So my reload time is the 34.2 seconds because you're getting 12 356mm guns, and then your 180-degree turn time is 50 seconds. So honestly, because I thought it was 34, and I probably should have known better just from playing. There's probably not so much need to have the artillery plotting modification, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But yeah, so HE shell damage 5,000, AP shell damage 10,500. When looking at the hull, you have an upgrade for the survivability, a defense and maneuverability. You do lose 2 secondary gun turrets though when you go up from the Hull A to Hull B, but you're not playing this for secondaries. So you're going to gain 53,200 hit points from the 48,200, so just 5,000 hit points in total. And a nice buff to your AA defense. Your AA rating here at tier 6 being 54, so kind of the American battleships are known for at least having decent AA. But, you know, when you're going up to tier 8 CV, you're not going to really be able to do anything in the New Mexico so much. Let's see here. Let's go to the guns. So let's just go ahead and knock this off. We'll just demount it. Your stock gun firing range is 14.6, which you can increase up to the 16.1 kilometer. So as a stock at 16.1, it's okay if you're versing tier 5, 6s, and 7s, but once you start getting tier 8 matchmaking, having a 16.1 kilometer main battery firing range isn't so hot, which I think is one of the reasons why I had that artillery plotting room in the 3rd slot. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So I would say upgrade the hull first, and then go for the guns second, to get from 14.6 to 16.1. Your propulsion, you'll go from 18 knots to 21 knots, and with Sarah Mike Flag, you will be bumped up to 22 knots. So it is a bit of a painful to grind New Mexico when you first pick her up, but she does okay. She's faithful, as we said in yesterday's video, or the title of yesterday's video, I should say. Looking at the first slot, I recommend going for that main Armaments Modification 1. This reduces the risk of your main battery becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Main battery survivability plus 50%. Main battery repair time, negative 20%. So you're just building into the guns of this New Mexico, the battleship. That's kind of what this ship revolves around. So just being able to make sure that those guns don't get knocked out, I think is quite wise to do here with New Mexico. You don't need auxiliary armaments modification 1. You don't need magazine modification, which this reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating by negative 70%. But I always run in randoms the Juliet Charlie, which completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazines detonating. Getting tongue-tied there. Ugh. You also have the spotting aircraft modification 1. If you really like playing New Mexico, this may be an option to pursue. Extends your consumable action time of your spotter plane by plus 30%. Right now it's 100 seconds, so if I do math in my head right, it should just be 130 seconds. So you're getting another half minute essentially on your spotting aircraft if you so feel the need to. And I'll revisit this here in a moment. For the second slot, taking the damage control system modification 1, this reduces the risk of catching fire by negative 5%, risk of flooding negative 3%, so really go for that. The other is this injury and protection, which doesn't happen so much with the battleships, or at least New Mexico. And you want to build into your survivability, is what I would tell you with the New Mexico. Since you are a slow target, you're going to get caught out likely at times, so just being on that extra tankiness, reducing the risk of catching fire or flooding, I think is quite good to go for. Now, here on the third slot, there's two main items. I'll talk about the one I had mounted, and then I'll talk about the other one, which could be even better, is the main battery modification 2. Your main battery traverse speed is plus 15% because right now we have a 50-second 180-degree turn time. A lot of the mid-tier battleships tend to not be so great. I like to have most all my battleships, if possible, depends on if the battleships like this has a really bad turret traverse time like the New Mexico, down closer to 30 seconds, 180-degree turn time. You saw how we needed to rotate our guns around yesterday when we had the Dallas and then the Baron pushing up on us. So it probably would have done me better in that situation to have the main battery modification 2. I'll show you what that looks like here in a moment mounted. But the reason why, for myself, I think why I ended up going with artillery plotting modification 1 was because of getting bottom tiered. And when you're tier 6 versus tier 8 battleships that, and your gun range is 16.1, a North Carolina and a Moggy, a Vladivostok, like they're gonna go for you. You're getting in with all the ranges of those tier 8 cruisers. that can also smack you as well. When I say smack, a lot of little smacks, let's move it that way. So just not having to feel that I had to play around my spotter plane so much was one of the reasons why I leaned into the artillery plotting room modification 1. Alternatively, if you built into the spotter plane, as could be a possibility if you like playing New Mexico a lot, then I would say, yeah, build into the spotting plane, spotting aircraft modification 1, and then just pick up the main battery modification 2, because you're getting that additional extended main battery firing range of plus 20%, which is more than the 16% that you get here with artillery plotting room modification 1. And then, you're working back in to be within that 16 kilometer range and less. But, I think this battleship plays best in the 10 to 15 kilometer window. It's just difficult when you're bottom tier. So that brings us to a 43.5 second 180 degree turn time. So it's actually pretty good to go down from 50 seconds to the 43.5. So taking 6.5 seconds off, definitely quite nice. So I would probably recommend that overall on New Mexico. You don't see tier 8s that regularly. It's just frustrating when it happens and your main battery firing range is 16.1. But you do have spotting aircraft when you need it to get out beyond the 18 to 19 kilometer range. 4 slot damage control system modification 2, fire extinguishing time -15%, flooding recovery time -15%. Again, you're building into the tankiness, you're building survivability. This pairs well with our commander as well, which I will show you here in just a moment. I don't really see need to taking any of these other skills, especially since your depth charges airstrike just sucks here in New Mexico. So in terms of armament, so 30% chance of starting a fire, 5,000 maximum damage with these HE shells. You penetrate 59 millimeter of initial velocity, 861 meters a second. AP, 10,500 in maximum damage, and the initial shell velocity 823 meters a second. So slightly slower than the high explosive shells in terms of the initial velocity speed. But having 12 of these works out really well, which is one of the reasons why they nerf you to that 34.2 second reload time and having these number of guns at tier 6. Depth charge airstrike, you only get one flight, one bomb per payload, 8 kilometer range, and these one bomb in the payload does 3,400, and it's a very small square. So the depth charge airstrike is not so hot here on the New Mexico, so don't expect to be able to stand against a submarine tier 6 or tier 8. They're just gonna raffle stomp you if they catch you out, and there's nothing you can do about it. Damage control party, standard with the build we have it at 22 seconds. Our cooldown time is 77.6 seconds, otherwise that would normally be 80 seconds. The repair party, we have HP per second plus 351, but with the India Delta combat signal, it bumps us up to 421, so I do recommend running the India Delta combat signal. Your consumable action time is 30.8 seconds. It's, again, stock could be 28, but it's because of our commander build. And the cooldown time is 77.6 seconds. Normally it would be 80 seconds, but again, that's because of our commander build. And we have 5 repair parties, and we have, which normally we'd only have 4, but again, because of our commander build. Spotting aircraft, main battery firing range plus 20%, action time 100 seconds, which you can bump up to 130 seconds if you take that spotting aircraft mod 1 in the first slot. Cooldown time, quite long, 240 seconds, so when you use it, make sure you're trying to get the most of your money's worth, because you are going to be waiting for a while before it comes off cooldown. Another thing we can do is that we can take the November Foxtrot, which reduces the ship consumables preparation and reload time, meaning that now we have our cooldown time down to 73.7 seconds. Same with our repair party, and we just went from 240 to 228 seconds. So I do recommend running that just to be able to get your repair parties and your damage control parties off cooldown that much quicker. So it's nice, you have 3 consumables that combat signal is building into. Otherwise, in terms of your combat signals, I would recommend minimal, doing a build like this if possible. You know, going from 21 knots to 22 knots is nice, in my opinion. You saw how long the Baron chased us in yesterday's video, so just having an extra knot actually really helped us out there, that we had to deal with him, and we were able to go and finish off the Nagato, which is kind of funny. If you're seeing CVs, of course, you can take your November Echo set 7, and that's going to bump your AA rating up to 56. Otherwise, without it, you are 54. Or alternatively, secondaries, just to briefly highlight that, you have the 5 kilometer range, 4.5 second reload time with those, and then these have a 7 second reload time, 5 kilometers. So I don't really see building into secondaries at all here with the New Mexico. You're just standard build, I would say this, you know, and at minimum this, if not something like this as an example. So let's go ahead and look at the commander. So as I said in yesterday's video, I actually moved my Montana commander off to New Mexico just for the purpose of this video, because I wanted to show you, I didn't want to just say, hey, this is a 10-point build, do a 10-point build, game Friday highlight we did yesterday, but this is what I would build in. So I really wanted to show you what I would actually have, all besides basics of survivability. So with New Mexico, I feel quite comfortable for your first point skill to take the emergency repair specialist. This is what's took us down from that 80 seconds to that 77.6 seconds you're seeing, and then of course with the combat signal, 73.7 seconds. So you're getting your heal, you're getting your damage control party back off cooldown that much quicker. I didn't see so much need for preventive maintenance. I don't have too much issues with my guns getting knocked out in New Mexico, at least in my experience. And with having a 34.2 second reload time, there's not much of a need to switch between the high explosive and AP. I mean, even when you saw a T-22 pop on us, like, we had AP loaded, we're going to shoot him. I'm not going to wait 17, well, I guess it's closer to 20 seconds just to reload from HE to AP to HE. No, I'm going to shoot him now. So that kind of leaves us with emergency repair specialist. For a 3-point commander, pick up grease to gears, main battery traverse speed plus 20%, so you're getting even faster turret traverse. So, you know, 50 seconds is where we were at before we took the slot 3 main battery modification. And then if I'd even have a 3-point commander, I mean, our turret traverse speed would be, I think, much closer to a minute. So that's really rough. So we do want to build into that and get it down to where we have it now, being 43.5 seconds. A 6-point commander, I would say Adrenaline Rush. Get that reload time down. You saw the reload time was being reduced as we took damage. That's what the Adrenaline Rush does. It reduces your main battery reload time by negative 0.2%. And you get a slight buff on your AA damage and secondary battery as well, but it's mostly for the main battery guns here in New Mexico you're taking this. So you're getting stepping down from a 34.2 to a 33 to 32 to 31 second reload time, which is just overall helpful in my opinion to have on the New Mexico. For a 10-point build, because of the nature of World of Warships, there's a lot of HE spam, a lot of people are going to be shooting your superstructure. I'd say take fire prevention first. Your risk of catching fire reduces by negative 10%, and the maximum number of fires is -1. So let's say if you're a newer player, I always do this just in case. Without fire prevention, right now we'd have 4 fires on our ship, 1 here on the bow, 1 on the stern, and 2 on the superstructure. Fire prevention basically eliminates 2 fires on a superstructure, and you only have 1 fire on your superstructure, which means you're taking less damage, because most people are going to be shooting, aiming for this. Only more of the intermediate to veteran players in the game are going to actually be targeting your bow and your stern and your superstructure, trying to ignite fires across the entirety of your ship. Most players just shoot the superstructure, generally speaking. So, and being at tier 6 and being a very slow, unmaneuverable battleship, fire prevention, just build into the tankiness off the get-go, because it also does reduce that risk of catching fire. And then you can see we have a detectability of 12.4, and this is what I'm going to say is probably up to you. If you want to do a 14-point build, if you want that next 4 points to be a concealment expert, be my guest. 12.4 conceal by sea, 8.2 by air. or you could go ahead and pick up the Emergency Repair Expert skill. And this is extending the action time of your damage control party. So that's, I think you saw 22 seconds. It's extending the action time of your repair party, which if we go and look at it, it's 30.8 seconds. Otherwise, it would be 28 seconds. So again, extra 2.8 seconds essentially. And you get an additional repair party consumable. So instead of having 4 heals, you have 5 heals. So it's really up to you which 14 point you would go for first tier. I would say after the 10 point, the consumables not that big of a deal yet. I mean, you can see I was pretty irrelevant for most of my game yesterday. For 14 point, I'll go Emergency Repair Expert if you're asking me myself. And then for 18 point, I would go for Concealment Expert to get down to that 12.4. Otherwise, without concealments, you're over 14 and your conceal is 16. So another reason why New Mexico can be a bit of a challenge to play if you're seeing tier 8s and you don't have that Concealment Expert to help get you down. For 21 point commander, I would build into basics of survivability, modular restoration time, -15%, fire extinguishing time, -15%, flooding recovery time, -15%. So this is a very standard, tried and true battleship build for a 21 point commander. You're not going to get so much use out of Brisk. Sometimes like my Vermont, I take Brisk on it. Because at the higher tiers, the maps are much larger, where tier 6 they're not, and you spend a lot of time being, generally as a battleship, you're more detected at the lower tiers. So for me, this is what I would run. This is what I run. On my Montana, I had a 21 point commander. I think on him at one point, and I moved him around, I think actually to a different battleship. I have to look. But this overall is just really good. And you can see how just having these things were helping pay off for us. I mean, it was reducing our chances of catching fire, and we were getting that additional heal and additional tick with the damage control party. So all said and done, this is what I would recommend for New Mexico. If you have questions about a skill I did not cover, let me know in the comments below. And I hope you have a good experience playing New Mexico. It's a little rough at first until you get to those upgraded modules, but once you do, it does help and makes the ship a bit more enjoyable playing. So I enjoyed dropping back down here to tier 6 in yesterday's video and playing New Mexico and having a good time and killing a third of, well, I guess it's actually a little over a third of the enemy team because there's only 11 matchmaking, 11 versus 11. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.